I was originally born in Oklahoma. My dad was in the Air Force, so we moved around a lot. So when I was younger, I moved to Honduras and then we moved to California. And then I ended up in Hawaii. I was about 7 years old and I stayed in Hawaii and grew up there. Very military family, but luckily when we moved to Hawaii, we didn't have to move anymore.
Mm.
But I met my husband there. I had two of my kids there. So I definitely know how to move around, start over, which is, it was hard, but it was, definitely a learning experience. I've been an esthetician for almost 18 years. And actually, I take that back. I was an esthetician. I retired from it last year so that I could pursue energy work.
Mm-hmm. Good. And tell me more about your kids.
So I have three. My son, he's my oldest. He is 20. And then I have my daughter, is going to be 16. And then I have an 11-year-old or almost 11-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your daughter was
Oh, yeah.
the first teenager, I would say. Well, yeah, teenager to take my class, my Reiki 1 and 2 certification class. So that's exciting that the both of you can work on each other now.
Yes, since we're both kind of, I'm not as high stress as I used to be, but we definitely can like help each other out because I do feel like living in Washington away from my family, even away from like the Holomua community, it seems like a lot of they're all in California. It's kind of sometimes a little lonely out here. So I feel like I'm kind of just on my own. So just having her help me and having that support really makes a difference. And overall, I feel like so much better. And I can't wait even for my youngest one when she gets a little bit older to, if this is her path that she chooses to be part of this growing community.
How have you seen Reiki actually help your daughter? Ever since she's like, you've been working on her and then she got attuned, like how has it helped her that you've observed?
Well, it's definitely brought us a lot closer together. There was a time where I was just like dreading the teenage years because she was just very dramatic and
As teenage girls are, yes.
yeah, but actually it actually brought us closer together because now it just established like a trust between us, like we're both on the same page. And she helps a lot of people come to her as well as when I was younger, a lot of people would come to me and ask, just kind of talk to me and kind of share their life story. And at that time for me, I didn't have direction. It was just kind of like, why are these people telling me these things? I don't know what to do with information. So with her, actually, like I see her and she's helping a lot of her fellow friends, like her, like her classmates and stuff. Like she's actually very inspiring to me. But a lot of, and it's kind of interesting because a lot of people, like more of the younger generation, they understand what Reiki is versus like my generation. It was very something like, oh, like it was, something you didn't talk about. So they're very open to it. So it's nice to see that the younger generation is more accepting of it and how she's able to work with things and how I feel like she's grown so much and just seeing her mature so much and really coming from a place of love and trying to share, her gift with other people. And I'm just so proud of her for that. And
I actually, when you were talking, I was like imagining her taking the life coaching course because I think for kids her age to actually have someone they trust to talk to, they're already coming to talk to her anyway. And for her to have those skills to be able to just like ask better questions and help them like work through their problems without taking on the burden of having to fix anything. The coach. And
it's interesting because we could sit on the couch, like last night we were sitting on the couch and we were just talking about like energy work and all this stuff. And I just sit there and I just admire her. I'm just like, wow, like she really is my daughter. Like this really, like it's happening and
we get to do life together.
Yeah, like it's really, I never thought about it. Like it wasn't even an option. Like you asked me 2 years ago if I ever saw this, I would be like, no, but now it's just like, and I really wanted to help her, because I know what I went through. And even her friends that like they're always like, tell your mom I said hi. Like so it kind of just establishes like this beautiful like connection of teenagers with parents or just teenagers with being able to talk to somebody who's older to.
They're probably like, your mom's so cool. You guys get to do this together. And I can't talk to my mom
Yeah,
like that, you know?
it is. Yeah, and it is.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm just like, wow, like it is really cool. Like I really do love it, like, and oh, and if she, of course, if she has any issues, she'll come and ask me, like, hey mom, what do you feel about this? But just the love that is expressed and that is shared and the acceptance that we both learned,
Yeah.
um, it's there's like no words that could completely explain the relationship that we have now because of it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And also take us back or take me back to the first time that you were introduced to Reiki and the benefits you received. Yeah, from once that was introduced into your life.
So definitely my first experience with Reiki, I was at a really dark place in my life, like, and then I was looking for something different. I had tried, different going to therapists, and I was put on different medications and stuff like that, but it just didn't sit right with me. It didn't feel right. Like I just felt like there was just something more that I wasn't quite grasping. And my life was just very hectic, trying to live, living the very busy lifestyle, trying to have all the material things and keep up that. I guess it's kind of like what people saw, because that's how they judge you, was like, do you have a good job? Like, what kind of car do you drive? And I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep up with it anymore. So my real Reiki session was actually with you, Britt. The one prior to that it was Reiki mixed with angel healing. So when I remember coming to you and super nervous, because I was like, all right, I'm just doing this, right? It was just like
Right.
I went in for hypnotherapy because I was a lot bigger
Right.
then. And you were like, well, let's just try Reiki and life coaching. And I'm like, life coaching? Like, okay, like, sure. Like, it was to the point where I was just like, whatever, we're just going to do this, like, go for it. And I was nervous. And I just remember talking to you, and I just felt for the first time, like, oh my gosh, someone actually is listening to me. Someone actually is hearing me, not just telling me, like, you should do this, you should do that. It was like, I felt validated with where I was.
Mm-hmm.
And gosh, there's so much I could say about that session.
And you came in for hypnotherapy.
I know I did. And then, because I've always been interested in like
Right.
past life regression, all that stuff
Yeah.
too. But I was
Hey
like,
man, whatever had to bring you in, right? Like
right, yeah,
whatever
yeah.
brought you in, and at least you're open. And I guess just my intuition was like, you need to try this also.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. There was just like, I think the fact that you were just so honest with me, like, but in like a nice way. And I remember you told me, and this always is in my head, you were like, you're not gonna be an esthetician forever. Like, this is not your life path. And I just remember sitting there like, oh my God, like she did not just say that to me. Like,
I
this
know,
is what I do.
I
This
just
is,
like shook you up, right? You
yeah,
were like,
I
what are
was
you
like, this
talking
is my
about?
identity. Like, I was kind of
Yeah.
like offended, but then I knew, like, deep in my, my soul, I was like, oh, she's right. Like, okay, like this girl, like she gets me. Like, I need like the tough love, but
Yeah.
then at least she kind of gave me a direction, so when we
I
did the
think you were
Reiki,
one of the first people to ask me to teach,
yeah,
So
I
you
think
can
so
take some
too.
credit. You can take some credit when you talk to the team members that, you can say you were one of the first ones to
I
actually
won't though.
suggest that I teach, because like it really wasn't on my radar. I really is so authentic the way it helped me with my ulcerative colitis, and I just wanted to pay it forward. And if I could help anyone save a body part and find, peace and, anything I learned, that I could pass that on.
Mm-hmm.
So when you even brought up teaching, I was like, what? Like, I didn't even think really, like, I didn't even see myself at the time ever teaching.
Yeah.
But then you kind of planted that seed before I left to California, which
Yeah.
is really funny. Yeah.
Because I think we had like, I just felt like such a connection to you, because I did have a teacher prior to that, which I was learning Reiki from, but I just felt like it wasn't resonating with me like how I wanted it to, but I knew it was the right thing.
Right.
So definitely having that discussion. Yeah, I am kind of like, wow, like like how you just said, like maybe I am, but then it's like, I don't know, like I'm never probably gonna say it like in a group, like, yeah, I put the seed in, like I'm not
Well,
like
you did plant the seed.
plant the seed, yeah,
Yeah.
like Sorry.
Yeah, before I went to California. And so then you moved right before me. You moved
Yeah.
to Washington, and then I moved to California. And
Hmm.
then a couple years later, you circled back, and then you just messaged me out of the blue one day, right?
Yeah, I did a
Yeah.
Tony Robbins thing. My brother was like, "Do this Tony Robbins thing with me," and I was like, "Okay, sure, why not?" Like COVID time, I'm doing a lot of like shadow work. I need some like building self-confidence. And the one thing that he kept saying was like, find some like a mentor who's doing what you want to do. And I already knew that I wanted to help people more than superficially, making their eyebrows look good or making them feel beautiful. Like I really wanted them to feel beautiful from the inside.
Yeah.
And I just thought of you and I was just like, oh, I wonder what she's doing. I remember there was like a lot of connection too, like where you
Yeah,
were
like
gonna
what is
end up.
she doing now? I think she's in
Yeah.
California.
I was only told that
Yeah.
because where you were gonna end up in California, like I have family that lived there too. So I was like, okay,
Yeah.
that like I remember telling you it was kind of weird. I
Oh
was
yeah.
like, oh. Um, and I was just like, you know what? It took me a while. Like I wrote the email and I was like, no, like I thought about it. It took me so long to, and I was just like, finally, I just sent it and I was like, okay, well, it's up to the universe. Like if she gets back to me, whatever, because
Yeah.
you know, I didn't know what to expect. It was like, I'm just gonna reach out. If
It's
she
been a
can
couple,
help
it
me,
was a couple
great.
years. Yeah, it was a couple years. And it's like,
Yeah,
wonder what she's doing now. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
And
then
I
you
was like,
got
well,
back to
I'm
me and I was like,
teaching.
oh, yeah. And then you had just finished your first distance Reiki. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is like
I finally,
perfect.
finally went against, I pushed back on technology so hard for so many years. I just didn't want to teach online. And then the pandemic was like, well, I guess I don't have a choice. I'm going to have to figure this Zoom thing out. And I'm going to have to figure out how to not lose the value of the in person. And
Mhm.
I feel very good about my class. But it took me a couple weeks to go, how do I translate this in person experience? Kind of like how Tony Robbins had to figure out, how do I
Mhm.
translate all these in person, like 7-day experiences that he used to do and then like deliver that same energy and transformation, via Zoom.
Yeah.
And I sat with that for a while. How do I structure this class so that I don't lose any value? And I feel really good about the class. In fact, I think it makes you guys better at distance Reiki
Oh
because
yeah.
you have to do it on the second day of class. You have to do distance Reiki on someone you've never met. And they're
Mhm.
not going to BS you if they didn't feel anything. They're going to probably say they didn't feel anything. But everyone felt so much from their partner, which was so beautiful. And so you've taken Reiki 1 and 2 from other people 2 other times,
Yes.
right? And I know that that there was some difference. There was a difference taking
Oh
it with
yeah.
me. But what excites you moving forward? Like, who do you want to help? What is this person going through and trying to overcome? Like, what excites you? I know you're going to work with people from all walks of life. But what would you say your specialties are and the types of people you like to work with?
I think my specialty, I definitely always kind of felt like I wanted to help, I guess, other healers. Um, I always felt like because I was so misunderstood and I didn't understand what I was going through or what was happening. So like just kind of being a guide to other healers too, or people who are just kind of wanting to know, because I'm an empath, so picking up other people's energy, and I just always kind of felt like I didn't have like both feet on the ground. So
Mm-hmm.
kind of helping people like realize, okay, this is mine and this is somebody else's, and not having to absorb other people's energy. But a big one for me is shadow work. That seems to be something that has been calling specifically to me for like over a year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and shadow work is kind of just, it has like a scary name to it. People don't even want to like associate with it, but
Yeah.
it's just really the parts of you that more of like the rejected parts of you or the parts that you just don't want to acknowledge. And
Yeah.
that's for me really diving deep into that and discovering those. Actually, those are my strengths.
Yeah.
That's where my strength comes from. I remember when I first kind of was able to label like, oh, I'm an empath. It was like, okay, great. I have this is what it is. And it was explained. But then I was like, I really, really hated it. Like I was just like, this is the worst gift ever. Like I just
I
don't like
feel everything. I
yeah.
don't know if it's my anxiety or the person I'm standing next to in
Yeah.
line. Yeah.
Yes. It's like I don't even need to know this information. Like, why?
Yeah.
And so learning how to like as soon as I accepted that part of me, like especially with COVID, because that's when I really started digging deep. Because I'd always kind of mess around with like the shadow work and kind of like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And then it would get a little scary. And I was like, okay, never mind. Like I'm just going back to my life because I know what to expect. But really digging deep. And I just during that time, it's like I really wish I had somebody who could just hold space for me, who could
Right.
provide just like a listening ear, who can just maybe not judge me, but who also understands. Because as empaths, we also have a gift of almost being in that moment with you. So like almost going with you with that experience. So it's like that's the closest you're going to ever get to somebody actually experiencing what you're experiencing, because we take on the emotions, and I can actually sometimes see things through their eyes, like actually almost like I'm there with
Yeah.
them. And I think that just helps me be a better healer because I have that understanding. I feel their emotions. I feel, their hopes and all that stuff. But I think that's my specialty. And a lot of people, especially now, again, we live in a society that's so based on the outside, and then they wonder why. You could reach the top of your life and then just still feel empty,
Right.
and I just want to just that sense of fulfillment and reclaiming who you are and empowering yourself, reminding yourself why we're here and things that we do want in our lives. That's something that's very important to me because that's what I'm still trying to do, because it kind of never goes away. It kind of just more like options become more available. Like you work through something that was really hard and you embrace it, you love it, and you accept it, and you forgive yourself, you know, um, and you learn from it. And then sometimes other things come up, and more of like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like shadow work doesn't end, but it doesn't have to be bad.
No,
It
and
can
like
be pretty.
triggers come up, but
Yeah.
then you get way better at dealing with them.
Yes. Yes.
It's like you can almost see it coming, and you're like, I know what happened there. I know why I got like a little uncomfortable in that situation. It was because so and so said this, and it reminded me of when my other friend said this, and it took me back to that time. But then you can like shift out of that much faster.
Hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
like the awareness of like
Yeah.
what's going on, right? From something when you were younger or whatever, but it's being able to see it and connect the dots. Where
Yeah.
there's a lot of people going through life right now, they just have no awareness of why they behave the way they behave, of why they're motivated by certain things, why certain things upset them or piss them off. They have like zero awareness.
Or they just notice the patterns, like, why does this keep happening to me? And it's
Yeah.
like, well, we kind of have to like, let's go there and find out why, But the thing
Yeah.
is, I think a lot of people, they think, oh, healers are just going to heal me. But it's like,
Oh no,
I'm
you
there
have to do the
just to,
work.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like, people have to understand it doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to do it alone. Like there's people there to help you. You just have to find that right connection with the right person.
And
And
ask
about
for help.
yes, and
Yeah.
ask for help, which was my biggest thing because I'm very, I was independent, like I don't want anyone to know anything. But again, it goes back to when I was going through my shadow work, I was like, I really did wish I had somebody to do, hold my hand, or just to be like, okay, these things are happening to me. I'm not crazy. Like it's okay.
Yeah.
Um, because definitely doing shadow work, a lot of my gifts came out too. And again, not knowing how to download them and properly like practice with them. It was, of course, a spiritual awakening, and I'm glad I did it on my own. But now I know, I mean, I've always known that I'm supposed to help people, be the light for people, in their darkness. That's why, again, back to shadow work, like literally.
And I think with shadow work, you need a coach. I really think
Yeah.
you need a coach. And I think because you can't unpack something by yourself, and
Mm-mm.
you need someone to talk it through, and you need someone to ask you questions to shift your perspective and see it in. Because if you've been looking at the orange the same way for 20, 30, 40 years, and no one goes, well, what about looking at it this way, right?
Yeah.
Coach does. Well, have you ever thought about this? And you're like, no, I haven't. But if it's just you, it's really hard to do that. And I think, like
Mm-hmm.
you said, when you came into my office, it was the first time you're like, oh, someone's really truly holding space
Mm-hmm.
and listening and giving feedback that, and this is the thing, is like you have to know how much to push and when
Yeah.
to push,
Yes.
because some clients, they're going to say, that was too much, that was too fast, that was, you know, I don't know if I could do all that, my action steps, like that feels a little uncomfortable still, or, oh, she was a little hard on me. And other people go, she's not hard enough on me,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Sometimes it could just be like, I know when I work with my coach, it's kind of like she gives me the permission. It's almost like permission to like this is okay. Like
Yeah.
it's okay to be this, it's okay to feel this. Cause sometimes it's like I feel guilty for feeling this way or for thinking this way, but it's just like, no, it's okay. Like you don't have to feel guilty. This is how you feel. So she helps me a lot in giving myself permission to do things. Because otherwise I wouldn't. Even if someone else told me, I'll be like, yeah, okay. And that's nice to know that, okay, this person does support me too in what
And
I'm trying to do in my life.
I think, your coach can handle it.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever
Oh, yeah.
comes up in this session, and like for you, when you facilitate, you'll be able to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever anyone brings up.
Yeah. And I mean, I've been through so many different things growing up too. Like my father passed away when I was really young. I had moved about 4 times. I finally, after my dad passed away, we moved to California and I finally met my family. So I was surrounded by family and we would do so many things together. And then before I knew it, we moved to Hawaii and that connection was lost. Having my husband in the military, I was a young mom. I got pregnant when I was 17. I was already graduated from college, but just always trying to be independent. His dad wasn't there either, like he wasn't around. So definitely a single mom and then getting married. And luckily we were able to stay in Hawaii for the first couple years, but he was deployed every other year. So always having, kind of being like a single parent to 2 kids and then not knowing if my husband was going to be around, if he was going to come back or not, always. So I was always living in a constant state of like anxiety and fear. And then of course, trying to do it all and be everything and make it look good on the outside.
That could be
So
exhausting.
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And then I mean, just marital stuff too. Like we've been married time, so
Mm-hmm.
a lot of not, good things, but also like some really dark areas too.
Yeah.
So like I understand.
So my last question for you
Mhm.
is, the world's been a little crazy.
Oh yeah.
People are not sure what to believe. There's a lot of, illusions are going around, and it's been a crazy time, especially for kids too. They don't know, like the adults in charge don't even know what's going on.
Yep.
Every week something's changing. So how have you been able to stay grounded? Do you have like a tip or two for people that you've used, maybe weekly, daily, that has helped you?
That's an easy one. So meditation is like my go-to. Like I will look up any kind of meditation for if I'm feeling anxious, look up meditation for that. That has been my savior for a lot of things, especially when I was in a lot of dark places. That just kind of helped me reminding me that, I am special. I'm here for a reason. A lot of self-love, um, learning how to talk to myself in a kinder way.
Yeah.
And journaling, definitely sometimes you can think things, but writing it out, like you can get a completely different perspective. Like I would have an issue and I would think it through and I'll be like, okay, I got this. And then I'll go to write it in my journal and it was just like a completely different answer. And it was just like the way that your thoughts come out on paper. Um, it was just like almost like if I would ask the universe a question, I would get it through writing. So those are my 2 biggest things. And of course, gratitude, being grateful for everything that you have. Like, even though the world is a little crazy right now, just being grateful that, you're here and what you do have. Because like you say, how can you feel like when you're in that sense of love and gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
you can't be angry, you can't be fearful, can't
It's
be
pretty
anxious.
impossible when
Yeah.
you're in gratitude. It's pretty impossible. Like I've actually recently had someone say something to me that was not very kind, but I was in such a state of gratitude, like the moment before that moment happened, that I couldn't, like, I always tell you, I pretty good with my words and I can respond. But in that moment that I should have, or I could have reacted like upset, I couldn't, like, I was just like, in so much gratitude that when it happened, I was like, oh wow, this is really what I meant when I said it's really almost impossible to be like upset when you're feeling gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know what happened, and I was like, well, that wasn't really kind, but I didn't even react because I was just in another moment right before that,
Yeah.
feeling incredible gratitude to certain people, and I was just like, wow, that's pretty cool. Like that recently happened to me. I was like, living what I was talking about.
Yeah.
I was like, this is really awesome. It's really hard to be upset.
Yeah. And even like with triggers too, I noticed, I know what my triggers are, and it's kind of funny because it's like I recognize them, and then
Mhm.
it's like it's almost like a game, like, okay, like I'm ready to do this again. Like, let's try to see how much I've grown.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when I'm triggered, I'm like, no, like I'm gonna be happy. Thank you for being here. Thank you for this moment. Thank you for this learning opportunity. Like always just trying to twist the narrative or
Yeah.
rewrite the story
Yeah.
to make it something,
A
that
more empowering one, a more
yes,
empowering story.
yes.
Yeah.
And it's anything, like anything we
Yeah.
could do with any, and I just, I always teach my kids, I'm teaching them that now too, and it's like it's all about your perspective. And yes, things are not going to be perfect and they're not going to go how you want them to or how you saw them, but just being grateful that there's always a lesson in something on
Yeah.
how you can grow better, to be better.
Yeah. Last question for people on the fence who are
Mhm.
looking at your profile page, going, I never tried Reiki before, but I'm thinking of trying it. What's the advice for those people?
Well, if they're already looking at my page and there's already like some interest there, I would just say just do it. I mean,
Yeah.
because it's going to be like you're going to think about it all the time, like, oh, I should have just tried it, I should have just done it. I mean, maybe it's for you, maybe it's not for you, but you're never going to know until you try. You can't give an honest opinion about it until like you do it. And I'm like I said with Britt, I was just looking at her profile and I was just like, oh, just do it.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think it's like one of those things like we can talk about Reiki. Like you can talk about how to do a certain kick in martial arts, but
Mm-hmm.
until you just do it, so it's like Reiki is like, yeah, we can tell you what it's gonna feel like, and everyone's different, and here's the
Yeah.
possibilities. But until you just experience it for yourself, right?
Yeah. It's definitely an
You can't
experience.
just read about it. You gotta experience it.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
everyone is different. Like has a
What
different
they
experience.
feel because of their intuitive gifts, and everyone has different intuitive gifts.
Mm-hmm.
What they're feeling, what they're seeing, what they're hearing sometimes. What loved ones from the spirit world that will come to visit in these sessions, which I've had that a lot happen in the times that I do this work. Just it's like a reunion of love.
Yeah,
You just never know what the session could bring, but it's always for the highest good. And so, yes, you're right. If they're looking at your page, they can fill out your contact form, and
mm-hmm.
then you'll get back to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, thank you.
Thank you.